Hey woodworkers, I have a awesome Memorial Day, 4th of July, honestly any time of year project for you. So a couple of variations here. Here's one that I made. And if you don't want to go with the red, white, and blue, you want to mix it up a little bit. Here's another one. But here's the cool thing about these. A lot of people are making flags and showing you how to do it. Each of those flags was 1 2x4. So fun project. Let's get started. All right, so this project starts at the table saw. I'm gonna start with 2 cuts. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to shave the very edge off of this. You know your 2x4s are kind of rounded. I'm taking off just the width of the blade just to give me a nice straight edge. Then I'm gonna set the table saw to 1/2 of an inch. Now I'm gonna cut as many 1/2 inch strips as I can. So let's do it. All right, so you can see, this is all I took off. Very thin strips. Almost nothing here. Save it for kindling for your fire. Now I'm gonna set it to 1/2 inch. All right, so we're gonna take those strips and we're gonna cut them into 3 different sizes. We have our longest ones for the stripes along the bottom of the flag. We need 6 of these for a flag. We have the other stripes, that would be here. So we need 7 of these. And then we need 7 of the short ones that are gonna make up the blue. So again, 7 of the 2 shorter sizes and 6 of the longer size. So the long ones are 37 3/4 of an inch. So what I like to do, since I already have one, so I always make a template, is I'm just gonna set this up with a block. I'm gonna put that against the blade of the saw, set it flat against my fence, put a piece of wood up against that, and then clamp that piece of wood. So now, I don't need to measure any of these pieces, I just slide them up to that board. Now, spread out these 5 1/2 inch pieces that I have here. I'm gonna cut this a specific way so I know I get enough of everything. So I'm going to take 3 of these. The other 2 I'm gonna set aside. So I've got these 3. Open this up, just slide them right down. I'm gonna cut 2 long ones here out of the 3 boards, so I need 6. So I have them stacked 3 high. I'm gonna make the cut 2 times. So there's 3. And there's 6. So these are going to be the 6 bottom stripes on the flag. Now, these I'm going to set aside because these are going to be used for the blue for the shortest ones. All right, so now what I'm going to do is my next longest here, which is the other stripes, the shorter stripes. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to set up the block, but obviously you don't know what the distance is yet. So it is basically 22 inches. So that's going to go there. And again, you can measure these all individually, or you can just set a block up. This seems so much easier to me. And now I need 7 of these. All right, so now I have 7 of those. And again, those are going to be the stripes, not at the bottom, but to the right of the stars. So now I just got to cut 7 shorter pieces for the stars. All right, so for this piece, it is going to be, got 15 3/4. Again, since I already have one, I'm just gonna do this. All right, so I'm kind of over here at my table where all this stuff goes together. Here's everything I just cut. And I want to kind of show you how this all pieces together. So I'm actually going to use ones I've already painted here, just to show you. So if you remember, we cut 6 of the long ones. You're going to paint half of them red and half of them white. So you have 3 long red ones and 3 long white ones. So if you think about your flag, we have that. So here's your bottom of the flag. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then you think about the next ones that we did where we cut 7 of them, not the last ones that were shorter, but the longer ones. So we would have 4 of them red and 3 of them white. So I would just pick up from here and I would go like this. And then we have our blue ones, and you have 7 of those, and they just go here. So as you look at these being put together here, they're not lined up, but you get the point here. This is how your flag goes together. Now, one thing I've had students ask me is why don't we just cut them all to the long length and then just, instead of having the top stripes and the blue separate, keep it as one piece and then just, paint part of it red, paint part of it blue. You are perfectly welcome to do that. I will just say every time I try to do that, I get some bleeding through and things like that. It's a pain in the butt. So I just started cutting this separate, and then they go together. And as far as the measurements go, all you have to do is make sure that this one plus this one is the same as one of the long ones. As long as that happens, if you're off a little bit, you're not exactly the same measurement as me, that's okay. Just make sure the flag stays pretty proportional. I mean, I've seen people make flags where they're almost square, and obviously that doesn't look right. There is a specific ratio you want to go for. So I try to keep it as close to that as I can. So now the biggest question is obviously, how in the world am I going to do the stars? And what I use is this beautiful stencil right here. I'll make sure there's a link down below. I actually got it in a set where it comes in different sizes. So the one that I have, there's that size for the 50 stars. There's also like a 1776 one, and then there's the same ones for smaller flags. So it's a nice set. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but again, I'll throw a link down below if you want to check it out for your flags. All right, so that brings me to the next part here. I want to set this up to do the stars. You have 2 main options here. I could take these and I could, put a little glue on the edges. I could put it together and clamp it, and then when it dries, I could paint it. I've done that before, but then you got to deal with if you have any glue oozing out. You can't sand it afterwards unless you want to have to repaint it again, yada, yada, yada. I've also done it where instead of painting these blue first, I glue them, sand it, and then paint it all blue. That is an option. Or what I've actually started doing is just saving scrap pieces. And what I'll do is kind of flip that around, and I would just trim this a hair. I go maybe 3/4 of the way up the top one and the bottom one, and I would just cut this and pop some nails in the back. So it'd be nail each one, put another one over here, right around there, nail each one. I don't do it at the ends because when I finish this flag, I have a long one going down the whole flag on each end, and one where the blue and the stripes are going to meet. So if you're going to do it this way, I would do it, maybe a few inches in that way, a few inches in this way. And you could even leave some overhang here and it'll just go into the stripes. That's really not a big deal. If anything, that'll give you more of an attachment. But I'm going to do it like this on this one so I can get right to spray painting it. All right, for this part, I beg of you, using nails, staples, whatever it is, check the size and make sure it's not going to go all the way through both pieces. imagine this being the whole flag. I had a student do this 2 years ago, I believe. They had the whole flag laid out. They put these on the ends. They popped nails, popped nails, popped nails. They went to pick up the flag and the thing wouldn't move. They didn't check to make sure they were the right size, and every one of those nailed the flag to the table. So just make sure if you're using the staples or nails, it's the right size here. So again, all I'm gonna do, I wanna make sure these are lined up, nice and even. Go in a little bit. Again, I just want this to stay together. And I got a dry fire. Let's try that again because my thing popped open. There we go. Alright, so what I do with my stencil is I put tape around the edges of it, just enough where it's going to basically cover the edges here. So when I put this on, it's easier if you're not wearing gloves, but we just sprayed one of these, so. And if you don't do this, you might have something like this happen. You see this one was sprayed and the white hit the edge here. So that's not a huge deal. I mean, if you have the same blue left, you can just kind of brush over it. But I'm trying to avoid having that happen again. So I just put tape over the edges, and I use spray paint here. And the secret to doing this without having a bunch of bleed through is you're spraying up, 8 inches or so, and I'm pointing straight down. I don't want to blast at an angle and have it go underneath the stencil. So I'm just doing this. And that's one basic coat. I use 2. If you try to just blast it really thick and do it in 1 coat, there's a better chance it's going to bleed under. I don't want that to happen. So a few minutes ago, I finished the 2nd coat on a different one. That's why this was still wet. But here's what that came out like. So again, just 2 coats, basic spray paint, nice simple stencil, taped around the edge. Now I can take this and go put a flag together. All right, so let's talk about assembly here. So I know with these little spots here, it's a little hard to set this up, but pretend that's not there. So when you think about your flag, obviously you're looking at a flag this way. What I've seen people do is when they flip it over to put this together, they flip this over here and they flip everything over, not realizing that when they flip the flag back over again, that will now be on the right side. So let me show you how we do this. I'm gonna flip all of these over. So it's almost like I'm taking the whole flag and doing this with it. So I'm gonna turn these over here. You might say, why am I being so careful to turn them this way? I don't want to mix my stripes up also. I don't want to end up, being out of order. I want to make sure everything's where I need it. So now the stars are going to go on this side over here, so that when I flip it, it'll be back on the right side, or the correct side, I should say, which is the left side. So hopefully that makes some sense. So I'm going to do here, I'm going to just, I have a board on the end here. I'm kind of making sure these are lined up well. Everything's together. And what I did is I cut 3 strips. Again, I use a bit of scrap when I make these. This one. I always save my scrap from the flags. So I cut these to about 18¼ inches, and these are basically gonna be braces that go on the back. And again, you can glue all these pieces together. I don't do that anymore. I had too many spots where I was oozing out, and then you can't sand the front because you've already painted it. It's a pain in the butt. So I cut these where it basically goes halfway into the top one, halfway into the bottom one. And what I do is I'm gonna put one at each end, and I'm going to put one at the seam where the stars and the stripes meet. So let me show you what I mean by that. You can see where the stars and the stripes meet here. I want one to overlap that halfway. And the reason for that is when I do my staples, I'm gonna do a staple on each side. So that holds that together. And then when I get past that and we're down to the solid stripes, then I just go staple, 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 staple all the way down. So, make sure everything is nice and tight together. Everything is even this way. I already checked to make sure I had the correct staples. I don't like to go quite all the way to the end with these. I like to leave them in a little bit so they're a little hidden. I've got my staples ready to go. Everything's nice and lined up. Now, again, here I'm putting one on each side where the two sections meet. Make sure everything looks good. They're connected nicely. All right, so right here is the final product we are working towards. If you are liking this tutorial, make sure you like, subscribe. Let's get back to work. I'm gonna work down to this last one. Here. Where I want it. What I'm going to kind of do is make sure I'm kind of pushing this together as I put these ones in. I don't have any gaps that are too big. And if I did that correctly, oh, we have a flag. So the final thing for me to do here is set this up to hang. So I grabbed this stuff. It's rated to 100 pounds. This is a 2x4, weighs a lot less than 100 pounds. So plenty strong enough. I've done it with rope before and rope looks kind of cool, but I feel like this stuff works a little better. So what I'm gonna do is I just pick a spot to come down. I'll come down maybe 4 stripes. And I'm just gonna kind of put this here. And right now I have it running up and down. I'm gonna put a couple staples into that. And then I turn it a little bit and I'll put a staple going that way also. So give you a better look at what I just did there. See, I have staple, staple, staple. And now what I'm gonna do is pull this across, and again I went down the 4th one, so I can just go down 1, 2, 3, 4 over here also. I have to actually undo this, which I've been trying to avoid doing. That's okay. I didn't pull enough out of it ahead of time. I'm gonna pull it across, kind of coming across a straight line there. Over here, I'll pop in a couple staples. I'll bring it down, pop in 2 more. And now, I'll just cut off the excess. Grab these. Now, that up, we have a flag. Plenty strong, again, ready to do 100 pounds. And the reason I do it a staple going this way and then down is it's less likely that it will pull out over time. But again, 1 2x4. That's better if I didn't have the piece of cardboard there. There we go. That is not bad for, you know, $4 plus some paint. One other option I want to show you here, I know I said this is a 2x4 build, but if you want to do something a little bit different, if you have some 1/2-inch plywood, if you remember I cut those strips to a 1/2 inch thick. With this one, I just use a 1/2 inch piece of plywood instead of gluing the pieces together. Then I cut out, you know, all the long strips and the medium strips, and instead of doing those short strips and having to attach them for the stars, just cut a piece of 1/2-inch plywood to the size you need, paint the stars on it, and put it together like that. So instead of, you know, what we did here, which was those 7 little pieces, you would just use 1 solid piece. So that also works. I know there's a bunch of different ways people make these flags. This is just one I found that works. It's cheap to make. It's a fun little build. My students love doing it. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.